I was told 5 minutes ago that I'd be moderating this event, so sorry if there are any slip-ups. So the purpose of holding this event, as some of you may or may not know, the revolution played a big role in pushing Syrian women into the public sphere, and we saw the immense role they played in civil society, in political work, in journalism and activism. And we're here to present to you examples of some women and the remarkable work that was done in activism and journalism and working with refugees. And here on my right, I have one of the women, Kholoud Helmi, who is an activist, journalist, and one of the founders of the prominent independent newspaper, Enab Baladi. And to my left is Jomana Hassan, who is also an activist, a former detainee, and she has extensive experience working with the refugee population in Lebanon. And via Skype, we'll be speaking to Bayan Rihan, who is an activist. She is the head of the Women's Bureau at the Douma City Council. As some of you may know, the local councils emerged after the revolution in areas where it became rebel-held territory. And they're an example of some of the democratic formations that came after the revolution. And that women had some role in so. And we also have Ghalia Rahal, who is the founder of Mazaya Center, which is a center in Idlib that runs various forms of women's empowerment, and it's the first of its kind in the region. Now we have some connection problems, network problems in the region in Idlib where Ghalia is, so she may be able to appear on Skype, and if not, Kholoud will be speaking about her work on her behalf. So each speaker will speak for 15 minutes, and then afterwards, after the speakers are done speaking, we'll have a question and answer session. So I'm going to begin with you, Kholoud Helmi. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you've done?
Thank you. And thank you all for coming to attend this event. As she said, my name is Kholoud Helmi, and I am an activist, and I consider myself as a journalist. I started my activism at the very beginning of the Syrian revolution in 2011. And at the end of 2011, me and the group of my friends, we figured out that there is no media covering what's going on in the ground. I come from a city called Daraya, and we are only 20 minutes away from Damascus, the capital. We joined the revolution very early, the first demonstrations went to the streets in the 15th of March 2011. But shortly afterwards, in April 2011, we started to have checkpoints, and my city was besieged by the regime, by the checkpoints. But literally it was besieged, but practically it was we have gates to go in and out, but not everyone. When the international media didn't get the opportunity to have its presence in Syria to cover the news or what's going on, and in Syria we have the only state-owned media that takes the only point of view of the regime, we took the decision to start our own platform and then report the news, since we are the eyewitnesses. We were the actors and the eyewitnesses in the ground. If I go back to 2011, the end of 2011, when we took that decision, it was the craziest decision we have ever taken. Though it was the decision that I considered the right decision. But at that time, we were surrounded by the regime and the security forces, and it was so dangerous to work. My family didn't realize that I am a journalist and I am covering the news. And only few people knew, only the very close circle of us. We couldn't meet in person, though we were friends. So our own platform was Skype. So we were planning things, organizing for the layout of the newspaper, what news to cover, and things like that. the thing that I want to talk about is being a woman, and we were 25 people who established or co-founded the newspaper. Like 70 or 75% of us were women. And we took the decision to be there because, I mean, we were present in every single moment. So we were taking up the streets, organizing demonstrations, and then we were there, I mean, to see or witnessing everything that happens. But the role of us women in that decision was like, we had till 2012 free access to checkpoints. We were not searched by the regime in full, and I mean, in comparison to our male colleagues, they didn't have any chance to cross the checkpoints. Most of them, they used to walk for 3 hours to leave Daraya to Damascus, I mean, through rural areas, because, I mean, they don't want to go to the checkpoints and be scrutinized and then arrested by default. It was easier for us women to, I mean, we had like a little bit free access to other areas. So we took up the mission that I go to other towns and cities, and I cover the news of massacres, demonstrations, or whatever going on. And I used to hold like editions of the newspaper, because we printed the newspaper from the very first edition. And we started to distribute the newspaper in the streets to the people and to our friends elsewhere. So I used to cross the checkpoints holding in my bag like 100 editions of the newspaper. And literally, if I go back to these days, I don't know why I took that decision. I might end up like dead or in prison if they opened the bag. As simple as that. And I was stopped by the security forces several times, and they checked me, and I was like, it was the decision between life and death, to be so brave to make yourself or pretend that you are doing nothing and you are an ordinary person crossing the street. Like, now I am telling you about these events and my heartbeats goes like up and up, because I still remember that moment. Like, I pretended that the bag I am holding has my own, it's female stuff, like it's my clothes, and it's feminine stuff, like if you want to check them. So he goes like, no, keep them. I was like, okay, thank you. And then I have to run away from them. And once I was in the street and holding another bag of like 15 editions of the newspaper, and then I was stopped by, we called them like mobile checkpoints, because they don't stop at that point. Out of the blue, we have some soldiers stopping at one corner in the streets, and then they search the people. So they stopped me and they asked me, where am I going and what am I doing? And then it was the other decision, like going to my auntie because I want to visit her, and then the other decision, like to hide myself or to show them what's going on. And they searched my bag, but I mean, they told me like when they reached to my handbag, but when they reached the bag, the plastic bag, they said like, okay, go. So it was by mere chance that I succeeded like hiding myself from them. But in the end, in January 2013, my hometown was taken by the regime. It was fully besieged. And we were forced to leave our homes in November 2012. But me and my friends, we kept going inside the town, taking the rural areas, the rural routes. But it was the second week of January when we were getting out of town, when one of my friends was caught by the regime. She is married with 3 kids, and then the regime arrested her mothers a week later, and her mother entrapped us, so she started calling the rest of the girls, telling us that I want to see you. And we rushed to see her because, she lost her daughter and we have to go comfort her. The first 2 girls who arrived, they were taken by the regime. And again, another chance, like a third friend, she called them and she said, like, where are you? And they said, like, the secret word that we agreed to say if we are in danger is that I'm over, like, or things are over, or I'm done. So we realized that she is taken by the security forces, and then we decided to return back. 1 week later, we were smuggled into Beirut, and then we started our life from diaspora in Beirut, and then Egypt, and then Turkey, and I ended up in Turkey, and then the team of Enab Baladi, they reunited in Turkey again, and we started operating from Turkey. Till this minute, we still cover the news from all over Syria. We have reporters reporting from all over Syria. We used to have reporters from the regime-held areas, and then they were so brave. Most of them, they were women. We had a reporter from ISIS-held areas when it used to be under the hands of ISIS. But literally, I am an editor and a board member. The only person who knows the real name of that girl is the editor-in-chief. No one knows who is she, what is her identity. And our reporter from Damascus, she quit a long time ago, like a year ago or more, because she felt like it's the pressure of operating from Damascus, and she couldn't like take that risk anymore because she felt like she is under scrutiny and she is being controlled by the regime. So she said, like, I don't want to end up in the hands of the regime. Through that journey, we lost a lot of our friends. One of the co-founders and a board member, and he was the first one who started the structure of the newspaper and how we are going to be like a real newspaper or a media platform, not only activist people who are going to post the news to the internet. He took the decision to stay in Daraya when it was besieged by the regime, and he was the first one to die in Daraya by a missile. So we lost him, the first one, at the end of 2012. Few months later, we lost the managing editor, and he was again targeted by another missile in Daraya. And later on, we lost the third one, who was our reporter in Daraya, and then a missile targeted him. When we were back at home, 4 guys were taken by the regime and they were arrested. Last 3 months, we heard that Nabil was killed under torture in the prison, and we were all waiting for him to get out. Another one is my brother, and he co-founded the newspaper with us, and then he was taken from home in May 2012. We don't know if he is alive or dead yet. And yeah, we lost a lot. Enab Baladi stopped only once from being issued, and it was August 2012 when the first massacre committed by the Assad regime in Daraya happened. So the regime forces broke into my hometown and they killed over 1,000 people in 3 days. Some of our team stayed in Daraya at that time, but me, myself, I left the town for 3 days. And then when I returned back home, I couldn't recognize my hometown. It was horrible. At that week, we couldn't report anything. Like, I still remember, like, I was crying and telling my friends that I have been writing the news on other massacres committed. Like, I covered the massacre that was committed in Muaddamiyat Sham, which is only like half an hour walk from my own hometown. But I hate myself since then. I couldn't associate with myself, the old one, before that time. Because I was like going to the streets, taking photos of the houses which were burned, women coming to me crying, telling me that how their kids were killed in front of their eyes, and I was like just recording things. And some old women, they thought that I could have the solution in my hands because I was like the educated girl coming to them in a camera in my hand. And since then, I hate the guts of myself. And I couldn't associate with myself anymore. But when it happened to my people, I was like, hey, stop. What are we doing? Why we are telling the news to the people? What are they doing since then? I mean, we're dead. And the people who were killed in the streets, they are my cousins, my friends, and the family of my friends. So how could I write about them and never feel ashamed of myself? But the next week, we took the decision that it's an oath that we have taken to ourselves that we have to continue. And we have to continue the message that the change has to come and everybody has to know what's going on. Now, if I have to explain Enab Baladi in few words, after 7 years, I'm not objective because I'm talking about something that I consider my baby. After 7 years, we keep going on. We still have the structure. We have an editor-in-chief, a managing editor. We have a full team operating from Istanbul in our office there. We moved to a very small office, and now our office is bigger and larger. We grew in number. We started to have reporters all over Syria, and we have reporters from other countries. Like, we have founding members who took the decision to go out of Syria, and then they moved to the States, to Germany, elsewhere, and they are reporting news about Syrian refugees from there. And luckily enough, we are considered one of the very prominent Syrian platforms, news platforms. And this is how women took up the decision to take the risk, because we had some free access to some places. We were equal to men in the decision that we decided to join the forces of the revolution. So we took up to the streets. We're not less than them. We struggled a little bit to take our role, but then in the end we proved ourselves, and here we are as founders of something that has never existed before during the days of Assad, when all the news came from up, and then we have to edit and report them.
Kholoud, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure it was very difficult to recollect all the things that you said. Our next speaker will be Bayan.